Texas, 1881. The sun hung low over a dirt-worn auction yard, baking every wooden plank and saddle strap in sight. Men shouted over horses, whiskey, and debt. That's when he saw her. Eli McGraw wasn't looking for anything but a decent mare to replace his old gray. He hadn't been to town in weeks, didn't care much for people, and they didn't much care for him. But that day, his boots slowed near a broken-down corral where something strange caught his eye. A girl, maybe 19, tied to a post, not with her hands, but with a rope looped around her wrist like she was livestock. She stood barefoot in the dust, hair clinging to her cheeks, dress ripped at the hem. And she was quiet, not frightened, not weeping, just watching. The drunk beside her swung a bottle, laughing through broken teeth. Dumb as a rock, but she don't talk back. Clean, too. She's yours if you take the mare. Eli didn't speak, didn't move, but the girl's eyes found his, and in them, he didn't see pleading. He saw something colder, resigned, as if she already knew what it meant to be forgotten. "I ain't dragging her home," the man spat. "Either she goes with the horse, or she don't go at all." Eli counted out the coin. The mare wasn't worth it, but something about her silence rattled him, like she wasn't mute but holding on to something the world couldn't hear. He didn't ask her name, not yet. She followed him to the wagon without a word. That night, as the fire burned low, he handed her a piece of chalk and pointed to the doorframe. She wrote slowly, "Willa," and Eli McGraw, rancher of 200 acres and 1,000 regrets, read her name out loud for the first time, like it mattered more than any word he'd said in years. The first sign. Life on the frontier was hard, but silence, that was harder. Willa didn't ask questions. She didn't flinch at chores or complain when the wind cut sharp through the cracks in the bunkhouse. She moved like someone trained not to be seen. But it was the way she listened that stuck with Eli. One evening, the sky turned green-gray, and the cattle began to stir. Eli chalked it up to the cold snap. But Willa stood still in the barn doorway, her head tilted like she could hear something miles away. Then she moved. She grabbed his coat sleeve, gently but with purpose, and pointed to the big oak tree behind the calf pens. He followed. No words, just trust. A minute later, lightning split the air. The oak cracked in half, the ground trembling as the trunk burst into flame. Had they stayed, it would have crushed the east barn wall. Eli looked at her, heart pounding. "You knew," he whispered. Willa didn't answer. She simply turned away, her fingers brushing a horse's mane like she was calming it and herself. That night, he didn't ask how. He just placed another log on the fire and left a second tin cup beside her. And for the first time in years, the silence in the room didn't feel empty. The language of silence. By the third week, Eli had learned Willa didn't need much. Just space, warmth, and sometimes a piece of chalk. She'd leave notes on the table leg or on the wall near the stove. Saddle loose. Rain tomorrow. Mare limping. She never spoke, but somehow always knew. One night, a cow began to birth early. Eli hadn't seen the signs, but Willa was already in the stable, water boiled, hay laid down, hands steady on the animal's side. "Who told you?" he asked. She looked at him like he'd missed the obvious, then tapped her own chest. "I listened." That's when it hit him. She wasn't deaf in the way folks assumed. She just listened differently, through touch, through rhythm, through things most people ignored. She was part of the ranch now, not just a shadow in the barn. And Eli found himself waiting for her gaze when something felt off, like her quiet instincts were more trustworthy than any ranch hand he'd ever hired. They never talked about it, But every time he found a new chalk word scrawled on the old beam, storm, birth, trouble, he believed it, and most of the time he was right to. Whispers in the wind. Willa's silence didn't bother Eli, but it rattled others. A fever swept through the ranch hand's family. The doctor was 2 towns over. Willa went in without a word, crushed herbs, laid cloths, stayed through the night. The boy recovered, but rumors didn't. "She don't talk because she's hiding something," one man said at the general store. "Spooks the horses," another muttered. "Witch, maybe." One morning, Eli opened his gate to find 6 neighbors standing there, not with pitchforks, but with doubt. "She touched a cow. It died 2 days later," said Mr. Langdon. Eli crossed his arms. "That cow was sick before winter. She just saw it sooner." "She don't speak," another man snapped. Eli nodded. "Neither do most of you until something goes wrong." Willa watched from the porch. Her face was unreadable, her hands still. "She's got a gift," Eli said quietly, "not from books or men, but from the land itself." They didn't argue again, but they didn't understand either. That night, Eli left a note on the hearthstone in chalk. "Let them talk," it read. "I hear you just fine." And when Willa found it, she smiled. Just a little, but it was enough. The second storm. Winter came down from the mountains like a warning. The sky turned a flat, bruised gray, and the wind picked up that whispery howl that always put horses on edge. Eli could feel it in his bones, an unease that didn't quite have a name yet. Willa had been stacking firewood behind the barn, wrapped in that patched shawl she never took off. She looked up once toward the ridgeline, eyes narrowing. Eli saw it, that stillness again, like the earth had stopped breathing. That night the temperature dropped fast. The animals were uneasy. The old barn creaked louder than usual. Eli was repairing a stall when he felt her hand on his back. Not hard, not panicked, just steady. She pointed upward to the rafters. He followed her gaze. Nothing. Then, crack. One of the main beams had split nearly through, wet rot eating its core. He hadn't noticed it in daylight. Another gust of wind, another crack. "We've got to move them," he said. She was already ahead of him. They worked by lantern light and instinct, guiding the horses out 2 at a time. Rain started falling sideways, hard and angry. Thunder finally spoke up. Just as the last horse cleared the threshold, the roof gave way. A thunderous roar of timber and shingles buried half the barn. They stood there, soaked to the bone, breathless. Eli turned to her. "How did you know?" She looked up at the storm, then placed his hand gently on her chest. She felt it, long before it arrived. That night they sat by the fire, wrapped in silence. Not the kind that separates, but the kind that connects. Eli watched her across the flickering light and thought about all the voices in town, all the words wasted on suspicion. They didn't see her, but he did, and he was starting to hear more than thunder. The boy in the snow. It was a Sunday morning when the bell rang through town, long, sharp, urgent. Folks spilled out of church pews before the echo faded. A boy had gone missing during morning chores, 7 years old. One boot found near the tree line. No tracks, no trail. Eli heard about it when a ranch hand galloped up the road, breath fogging in the cold. The whole town was searching, but the woods were wide and snow had covered the ground just enough to hide signs. Willa didn't speak. She just knelt in the yard, pressed both palms to the earth, and stayed that way for what felt like forever. Then she stood, pointed west, and walked. No one asked why. Eli just followed. Then Tom Weaver joined. Then 2 more. A quiet procession winding through pine, sage, and ice. Willa moved without hesitation, reading broken twigs, bent grass, the soft patterns snow made around roots. They found him in a cedar ring, curled beneath a fallen tree, shivering but alive. She ran to him, checked his pulse, wrapped him in Eli's coat, and nodded. No fanfare, no pride, just relief. That evening the town was quieter than usual. No whispers, no curses, just nods. A pie left on the porch, a scarf tucked into the gate. She didn't speak a word, didn't need to. The girl who heard storms could hear hearts, too. A cloak for winter. The snow fell thicker in the weeks that followed. A blanket over broken barns, bare trees, and old wounds. But inside the ranch house, warmth grew. Willa had taken scraps of wool, lining from Eli's mother's old coat, and started sewing. Her hands moved slowly, precisely. She wasn't making something for herself. She was making it for him. He watched from the door, heart tightening, not from sadness, but something quieter, deeper, gratitude that didn't know how to speak yet. She brought him the cloak the night the stove ran low, held it out without a smile. He took it without a word, but their eyes met, and it said, enough. He taught her to ride. She taught him to sign. Her hands moved like water over stone. He fumbled, laughed, tried again. She never judged. By midwinter, they shared more than chores. They shared rhythms, coffee at sunrise, wood stacked in silence, her notes chalked beside the stove. Storm tonight. Birds came early. You forgot lunch. One night, he signed slowly, "You make this place full." She reached across and touched his lips. Not a kiss, a thank you. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, they sat wrapped in a kind of peace words would only ruin. Redemption and return. Sheriff Mallory arrived with a saddlebag full of news and guilt, claimed the land Eli worked might not rightfully be his. Old deeds, broken treaties, claims lost in war. Eli didn't argue, he just stared at the floor that night. He hadn't taken the land, but his father might have. He didn't speak to Willa about it, but she saw the way he moved, slower, heavier. That night, as the fire burned low, she placed his hand over her heart. "You feel shame," she signed. Then she walked out to the old oak at the hill's edge, where his father lay buried. She'd never read the name, never asked, but she knew. And in her silence, Eli found something he didn't expect. Forgiveness, not of the past, but of himself. The garden of listeners. Spring brought children from town, from neighbors who once spat near the porch. They came not to play, but to learn. Willa showed them how to stand still, how to tell fear from instinct, how to calm a horse with breath alone. She didn't teach them like a schoolmarm. She showed them by example. "Why don't you talk?" one child asked. She signed, "Because I hear more when I don't." At dusk, Eli built a bench beneath the cottonwood. That's where they sat, watching stars, sharing tea. No words, until one night she whispered, "I do not need sound, only you." He looked at her, nodded once, and said, "I hear you. Always have." Where silence speaks forever. Time passed. The ranch aged gently, paint peeled, steps creaked, but laughter came often, soft, rare, real. Willa wrote each morning, "Today will be kind." One winter, another boy vanished, snow falling hard. No one panicked. They went to her. She knelt, pressed her palms into snow, and pointed west. Eli followed, just like always. They found the boy beneath a log, scared, but breathing. No one questioned her again after that. Now, when folks tell their children stories, they mention the girl who never spoke much, but always knew, and the rancher who listened, not with ears, but with his whole heart. Their love was never shouted. It didn't need to be, because in the Wild West, where storms speak louder than men, the loudest love story was the one spoken in silence and remembered forever.